Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. And I just wanted to do a quick video because I was thinking about how it's so easy to take your eyes off God for a second and focus on your ambitions, focus on, just like these goals and, these plans and things that you may have, right? And if we're not careful, we can take our eyes off of God and begin to fix it on these other things that we're pursuing after, and then find that little by little we suddenly find ourselves in a place where we did not anticipate, or we suddenly find ourselves being um, desensitized to the things that grieve God, or being less able to discern his voice, right? Because in order to be able to discern his voice, you need to have a close relationship with him, right? You need to be able to spend those intimate moments and times with him to be able to hear his voice and discern it from every other voice that may be talking to you or talking in your head or in your heart. And so when you're busy pursuing other things, these other things now become a priority, right? And so you begin to spend a lot more time, physically, mentally, emotionally on these other things. And it can cause you just to begin to pull away. And the scary thing is, many times as you begin to pull away, you don't even realize it. Because maybe there's still some things that you're still doing that are still making you think that, oh, it's enough, right? Like maybe you're still here and there picking up your word, still going to church once a week, still, listening to worship music as you're driving, right? You may still be doing things to make you think and feel like that connection is still there and it's still strong, when in reality it's not, because what you're focusing your time and your mind and your attention on the most is what has your attention. And I think about how the enemy is literally just waiting for you to just begin to pull away, and then he's going to find a way to pull you away so far where you get to a place where you look and you're like, how did I get here? I think about the people who have fallen, people who started off really strong and started off really, passionate about the things of God, and then now you're hearing about them, being involved in things where you're just like, how, like, when did this happen? Or you're seeing that, their theology has become a little contaminated, right? It doesn't look and sound like Christ no more, right? Like you're beginning to see the fruit, and you're just like, how did we get here? Because at one point you were so on fire and you were so passionate. It's because if we're not careful, we're going to give the enemy the access that he needs in order to be able to pull us away from God, right? In order to be able to cause us to not be able to discern and hear as keenly as we used to. um I think about the story when, Jesus is walking on the water and Peter asks, he's like, Lord, if it's you, call me so that I can walk to and I can meet you. And then Jesus is like, essentially Jesus is like, all right, come on, walk. And Peter begins to walk, and Peter is like walking on the water. Now there's a storm raging, but Peter is like walking on the water. But the minute Peter takes his eyes off of Jesus, because he's looking at Jesus as he's walking, right? And so he's not focused on what is happening. He's just focused on Jesus because he wants to stay focused. Like he's doing something that is like crazy. That's kind of like impossible. And the minute Peter takes his eyes off Jesus, he begins to and focuses on the storm that's around him, right? He begins to fall. The scary thing is that the same thing happens with us, right? The minute we begin to take our eyes off of Jesus and our focus and our priority is no longer Christ, we begin to fall. But the scary thing is, many times we don't realize that we are falling. We don't realize that we are falling. And you get to this place where you have fallen, you're in a fallen state, and you're just like, I'm sure, I mean, I don't know. I wonder, for those who have found themselves in those states, in those positions, I wonder if they're just like, how did I get here? Like what was the boundary that was crossed? Or when was it crossed? What was the incident? What was the moment? What was the person, right? That what did I allow to overstep or cross that line or that boundary that has led to me being where I am right now? I think it's really scary. I think it's really scary, especially as I look at the body right now, at the church, and looking to see where the church is right now, and looking to see all these things that are happening in the body, with different well-known individuals, and accusations and things coming up. And it's scary to think how easy you can go from being passionate and being like, so focused on God, to now being tainted, or you know, or preaching a gospel that does not look and sound like Christ anymore, a watered down gospel, right? To be so hot on fire in one end, and then to appear to be lukewarm on another end, like to be again, like to be so passionate in preaching the word on one end, and then to be partaking in activities and things that look nothing like Christ, and if anything are an abomination in the eyes of Christ. And so that's discouraging. It's discouraging, but it's also a reminder to continue, like Matthew 6, right? Is it Matthew 6:33? Matthew 6 telling us, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will come. And so we have to be people who are keeping our eyes fixed on the Lord and seeking first his kingdom and righteousness, and then knowing that all these other things that are trying to grab our attention, that are pulling us and that we desire, those things will come. But what comes first is you're seeking and pursuing after God, right? And so you want the influence, you want the impact, you want the money, you want, the relationships, you want whatever it is that you are wanting and desiring, wherever your ambition lies, that will come. But first you have to seek his kingdom and his righteousness. And so his kingdom and his righteousness has to be your priority, not your ambition. And as his kingdom and righteousness is your priority, he will fine tune your steps, right? Because he's the one that will direct your steps. He will fine tune your steps, and then your will will align with his will, and then you'll begin to see things are just falling in place for you. You'll begin to see life is working out. You'll begin to see opportunities open up. You'll begin to see things maybe that you have wrestled with that are no longer that no longer have power over you, right? That are no longer speaking in your life. But we have to remain grounded and rooted in him and seeking first his kingdom and his righteousness. And so that's a reminder to myself, but also to you all listening, that don't look at someone who has fallen and think that that can't be you. Don't look at someone who appears to have taken some steps back, who appears to have fallen, and think that it can't be you. Because I'm sure at some point, some of those people looked at other people who had fallen and was just like, that's not going to be me, because they're so passionate about God in that season and at that moment. And it's just a reminder that it can happen to you as well, right? And so the key is to keep your eyes fixed on him. The key is to remain rooted and grounded in him. The key is to not allow success or relationships or ambition, to not allow any of these things to grab your attention and to seize your attention, right? But to know that these things will just be a byproduct of your natural obedience and pursuit after God, at varying degrees and levels, depending on who you are. But that should not be the goal. That should just be the end result as a byproduct of what God, of the favor of God, and just the consequences of obedience to God in your life. It's just a reminder to myself, and I want it to be a reminder to you as well. So yeah. So just remember that the enemy is just looking for the access. He's just looking for you to give him access. And once you do, trust and believe he's going to end you. He's just waiting for the access. But when you're rooted and you're grounded in God and in the word, and your relationship with him is solid, even when the enemy tries to find ways to penetrate and to enter, the door will be shut in his face because you have not granted him access. And so we need to be people who know how to close the door. Or if we have already allowed certain things in, we need to be people who are willing and ready to give an eviction notice. So that's what I have for you today. Be encouraged and continue to trust the plan of God for your life, and know that, just like the word says, His ways are higher than your ways. His thoughts are higher than your thoughts. And so, sometimes things may not look like what you wanted it to. And it may feel like, Lord, I've been following you and I've been obedient and I've been doing X, Y, Z. And it's just like things are not falling into place. Sometimes it's demonic and it's spiritual warfare. And there's something that you have to do in order to fight back. Sometimes it's just not God's timing. The timing is not it. It's not the right time. And sometimes there's more that God is looking to for you to learn, right? There's more for you to get out of this thing that you're still enduring and going through. And when the time is right, you'll see the breakthrough. And so wherever you are in your walk, wherever you are in the seasons that you are in, just remember that it could be any one of those things, right? But the more you stay fixed on God and the more you stay pursuing after his kingdom and his righteousness, heaven is going to back you up, right? You don't have to be pursuing after this and that and this and that and like having it drive you crazy. Heaven is going to back you up. Things will fall into place because the word says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will come. All right? Be encouraged.